different than all the rest. I'm quite old-fashioned, wear a hat, sometimes play chess. And when I'm out, I'm looking for that vintage fling. But all complexions that I adore, so hard to find, these seem impossible to score. So I dream on to someday find that vintage love. I kept on looking, but everyone's such a bore. And out of a sudden, you came through the door. At the next table, your whiskey neat, the lights were dimmed as our eyes met and you saw me. And forevermore, I like to share that vintage dream.
Well, he said, give me some love, give me some love, give with some friends for you. Cause you couldn't stand it, me all independent. So you had to have me for yourself. That was when I trusted you. When I could add up 2 and 2. When you promised we'd be together, you, me, forever. Now there's nothing left to lose. And though I understand it's hard sometimes to make up your mind in these trying times, yeah, I just can't accept you leaving me when I'm overseas with the heart so heavy. Think that I deserve the truth for once, not a guilty tone, cause you're not alone, yeah. You said you wanna come home, but I know you don't. So this time I won't hear it on the phone. If you got something to say to me, then say it to my face. What it's all about, why you're bailing out. Think you owe me an apology. Just say it to my face. You're sorry. You're so sorry. You're so sorry. You're so sorry. Say it to my face. You're sorry.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show.
Good morning, fam. I'm Carl Mack, and I'm sitting in this morning for Brother Ben Dixon, who's out on assignment. Today, let's start this, even though we're past Black History Month, with our Black History Moment of the Day. Hey, Google, what happened on this day in Black history?
On March 1st, 1914, writer Ralph Ellison was born in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. His critical and artistic reputation rests largely on a single masterpiece, Invisible Man. Ellison also achieved acclaim as an essayist, largely due to his 2 books, Shadow and Act, 1964, and Going to the Territory, 1986-1987. Among his numerous awards is the Medal of Freedom awarded by President Nixon in 1969. Adapted from Black Heritage Day 4 calendar by author, lecturer, and civil rights activist Dr. Carl Mack.
Well, good morning, Brother Ellison. So, Dwayne, if we could, I want to bring a couple of brothers on the scene who's going to be joining us this morning to talk about this morning on the Ben Dixon Show, the latest developments in Russia's attack on Ukraine. So joining me this morning, former White House aide, Brother Al Rutherford, and my favorite wingman, Captain Bone Barnes, and the man who has it hard on the Queen, Brother Marcus. Welcome, brothers.
Good morning, Brother Mac. How are you?
Good morning.
I'm
Good to see you, my wingman.
There you go. So, gentlemen, listen, it was February 24th, I believe, of last month when Putin invaded Ukraine. And given that Russia is considered the home of some of the greatest chess players in the world, we saw Putin make his chess move of taking his 150,000+ troops and surrounding Ukraine with, I believe, the expectation of, in as few moves as possible, being able to call checkmate. Now, it is apparent that there were some miscalculations at this point made by Putin. So at this point, I want to turn it over to you, brothers, and let's talk about the current state of affairs and what we would consider some of the miscalculations. So, Brother Rutherford, if you can join in on that and give me what you think are the latest developments that indicate some level of maybe underestimating, if you will.
Well, Dr. Mack, again, it's a pleasure to be with you. And let's just jump on in here. I think the key mistake or miscalculation, and there have been several. First, let's recognize that this situation isn't going the way that Putin expected. And I think if you look at, one, the resolve of the Ukrainian people and the leadership that Zelensky is showing when he was given the opportunity to leave the battlefield, to leave Kiev via a helo lift. He responded by saying, "I don't need a ride, I need ammunition." And so let's understand the resolve of the people, because a man fighting for his home will always fight harder than the other guy. Okay. Number two, I would say is the unity around NATO. Previously, under other administrations, and we know who, there was a direct effort to break up NATO, to embarrass NATO. And the current administration has had to rebuild those relationships and alliances. And I think when you look at what is taking place now, the NATO alliance is very well intact, and they are moving forward together. Third, I would say the internal protests that are taking place in Russia, that is almost unheard of. I believe around 2,000 people have been arrested. So people in Russia aren't buying the line that Putin is putting out there. So that's got to be a miscalculation on his part. And I think that's because he has become isolated from what is taking place, and he has surrounded himself with people who are willing to just say, yes, sir, yes, boss, and keep it moving. And then I would say the fourth thing is he can't get to his money. His rainy day fund is out of reach. When you see countries like Switzerland come in and say, hey, we're going to renounce our normal neutral position, and we are going to follow the EU sanctions as well, that's a significant statement. That's a significant statement, cannot be underplayed. This man cannot get access to the $680 billion that he put away to help manage this particular set of sanctions. Now, what's particularly concerning to him, or it would be if I were in his position, one is the fact that the ruble has cratered. It's worth less than a penny. Less than a penny. And the fact that the Russian stock market cannot even open. This is not how he envisioned things 6 days into this conflict or into this war. So that's kind of how I see it, real quick.
Well, it appears to be some real miscalculations. Captain Tony Barnes, a graduate of the United States Naval Academy. Bones, welcome aboard.
Hey, thank you, Brother Mac, my wingman, affectionately known as the Noodle. I will appreciate that. And Al, you're spot on. The biggest travesty from the Russian perspective is the total miscalculation of what to expect. They never expected that the Ukrainians would destroy nearly 700 of their armored vehicles. They never expected that 50 of their aircraft and 150 of their tanks would be destroyed by what they considered to be a ragtag, third-rate military consisting of only 204,000 troops. Heck, they amassed nearly 200,000 of their own troops on the border and figuring that that was going to be enough. And so the miscalculation, like Al said, when you're fighting for home, when you're fighting for mom and dad and the kids, your resolve is immeasurable. It's difficult for any military operation to underscore just how hard these people would fight. And they're fighting, they're arresting Russian troops, getting them out of their vehicles, et cetera, in some of these towns. And you got folks with double-barrel shotguns and low-powered rifles, next to the Russian military. Who would have ever thought? But once again, as a military mind and as a graduate of the Naval War College, I go back to the beginning, the basis, the king, the master of military strategy. Over 1,600 years ago, Sun Tzu wrote a book on the art of war. And you've got to go back to the art of war to understand the basics. And if you're not following the basics, you're going to have a problem. So know your enemy. And in 100 wars, you will have 100 victories. And you never underestimate the moral and the background of a homeland defender. Sun Tzu said, the best way to win a war is to never fight one.
Right. And speaking of that, Bone, Marcus, I know that's certainly been, I think, not only your position, but all of our positions, is that, hopefully we never could have fought this war. So based on where we are today, give us your thoughts, my brother.
Yeah. And this is the thing, too, is like, I would say open and honestly, Dr. Mack, you got me 100% nailed to rights. You were right. I was wrong. I didn't think, and I think there's a lot of people who didn't expect Putin to do this. The cards were looking like another situation with Crimea and not full-scale invasion. You said it was going to happen. I said I didn't think so. So first off, hey, you got me.
Hey, listen, Marcus, just a couple of brothers just tossing up some ideas. But let me be clear with you, Marcus. Let me be clear. That brother sitting to your right, Mr. Al Rutherford, made it very clear to me that Putin was going to do this. And I asked him, I said,
maybe, Brother Al, we got to talk. Let's keep circles. But now that we're
no
here,
doubt.
And this the thing is there's a lot, and it's very kind of important to keep on what's going on and what's the situation. I'm very interested in where we can go from here into getting peace. I think like everyone's already pretty much laid out very accurately, this isn't going probably as Putin expected. But I think one thing that's important is that he's not stopping. I think there's this morning, there's some footage released of some government buildings in Kharkiv getting hit. And I think that this escalation can be expected, which, I'm already extremely saddened by the loss of life. And having other military veterans, we can understand that, especially there's these 2-year conscripts in Russia are largely just kids that don't know what they're doing. So this is just a very, very sad situation. But I'm interested in seeing where, everyone thinks that what are the actual steps towards peace, because Putin it doesn't seem like he's going to stop. It seems he's absolutely willing to subjugate Ukraine to violence, subjugate his own population to what's going to be the brunt of these sanctions, right? These sanctions aren't going to really hurt the oligarchs that much. They're going to be okay. It's going to hurt the people. But I kind of want to see, if where, since he's keeping going, since, is it just continuing on the sanctions, or, is there some way to give to stop the fighting? Or, is this going to escalate into, other militaries, potentially NATO forces? I'm wondering if we could kind of explore where this goes from here in some of these sides.
Good. And that'll be a good segue, because one of the things that happened is negative 45, Donald Trump made over this past weekend the assertion that Joe Biden was dumb, Putin was smart and brilliant, and said that he didn't think much would come about as part of $2 sanctions, that basically Putin is going to go into Ukraine for nothing more than $2 sanctions. And so let's talk about these sanctions, if you will, because I think, Mr. Rutherford, as you alluded, one of the things that I think Putin underestimated was the unity behind NATO. And so for those who may not understand, based on what NATO did, and I think the organization is called SWIFT, and what SWIFT basically is, it's the Gmail system for the international banking system, and they've cut Putin off from that. And SWIFT is an acronym that stands for, let me get this right, Society for Worldwide International Finance and Telecommunications. And so when you're locked out of that, you got to imagine that there are over 11,000 companies and businesses expanding over 200 countries. And when they lock you out of that, your money outside of Russia basically goes to zero. So right now, 1 ruble, and the ruble has fallen to historic lows. 1 ruble is less than a penny in the United States. So when we talk about these sanctions, because I wasn't quite sure what these sanctions was going to look like. So Captain Barnes, if you could jump right in there and give me your thoughts of how these sanctions can affect the Russian economy and possibly deter Putin from moving much further into this situation.
Well, as you know, it takes money to wage war, and war is very, very expensive. And I totally agree with Brother Al, as I saw from the get-go that this was just not a posturing event on the border, that he was definitely going to go forward. People don't realize that Russia isn't really what we would consider on the international scene. It's not a wealthy country. And so to spend the kind of money it takes to move nearly 200,000 troops into position, you don't just do that as a saber-rattling move. So he was always intending, in my opinion, to go into that country in some way, shape, or form.
Yes.
And so these sanctions, we knew the international folks knew that financial sanctions are what it was going to take to ratchet up the pain. And so they're not instantaneous. It's not like, putting our troops on the other side of the border and daring them to come across. These sanctions takes days or maybe even weeks or maybe months to really feel the full punch of it. And that's really the only card we have to play, short of sending troops in. And we were not going to. And I agree, it's never a part of our strategy, in this case, to send boots, American boots or NATO boots on the ground in Ukraine and engage the Russians toe-to-toe. That would be terrible. So sanctions were the obvious move, the best move. And we're seeing, even in the short term, they're causing pain. And these oligarchs that are used to having the world at their fingertips don't have access to that money. And it's going to bleed soon.
Now, Al, speaking of the oligarchs and NATO, and Marcus, I want you to give some thought to this as well. It's been said that it's been a while since anybody has seen NATO as unified as they are right now. And I, for one, was a little doubtful of the way that Biden was handling it, but it appears, contrary to what negative 45 has said, is that Biden has done something. And so can you speak to the unity of NATO and what the impact of these sanctions is having on these Russian oligarchs, if you will?
Sure. Well, first, let me go back to the Crimea situation, because when Putin rolled into Crimea, he basically didn't pay a price. Okay, he didn't lose a single soldier. The sanctions didn't really make him back up or rethink his position. So he came into this equation thinking that it was largely going to be the same. And that's where he has really made a strategic blunder. When you look at the work that Biden had to do, President Biden had to do to rebuild the alliance, the NATO alliance, that was significant. Then you have a new German chancellor coming in. I think everyone fairly well knew Angela Merkel after over a decade in office as German chancellor, knew where she stood. You've got a new chancellor in Scholz coming in, who's been in the job less than 2 months. He came to the United States, met with President Biden, and I have to believe that it was during that meeting that they really formed this relationship that has allowed for NATO to stay strong. And I say that because shortly after the invasion, Scholz cut off sanctions with Nord Stream 2. And that's a significant move because Germany gets the bulk of their oil and gas from Russia. But he was saying that, look, we're going to make this move. This is something that has to be done because what we're looking at is democracy under threat. And if you allow Ukraine or if you allow Putin to go in and pays no price, then where's he going to go next? Moldova, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, pick one. So the sanctions, while they do take time, are having a direct effect right now because, as you noted, the oligarchs can't get to their money either. They can't fly their jets into London or into Miami. You know, they've cut off landing rights for these extremely high net worth individuals. And their comfort is something that they enjoy and they are not used to. I think that is part of the reason that you've actually seen 8 oligarchs come out against the war. And this is unheard of. They're on record doing this.
And Al, let me let Marcus jump in here for a second, because Marcus, you know, even with what we've seen in Russia, I mean, I think it's unheard of. And Al, I think you originally said it was 2,000. I think it's closer to 6,000 people who have been arrested. So Marcus, if you could give us your insight to how the Russian people themselves are taken to what Putin has done on this invasion of Ukraine.
Yeah, and that's where I think there's been a great international show of support for the Ukrainian people first and foremost. And you know, I want to mention a short little book as well, as like when Smedley Butler talked about war as a racket and who war is actually serving, and to the point where none of this is helping the Ukrainian people. None of this is helping the Russian people. This is, rich billionaires, extremely wealthy to the point of powerful international people that are making these decisions. And this is where like things get extremely complicated, because when it comes to the demands of what Putin wants, in a way that was supported by a significant group of Russians, i.e. the independence of the Donbass region, and then also Ukraine neutrality in NATO. Those things are largely supported by Russian citizenry and the Duma, the oligarchy. Where Putin went too far was going past and then trying to, and invading the entire country. And there's been mass protests in response to that. And I will say this, it's not too unheard of. I mean, Putin is not liked in Ukraine. There's been mass protests against a myriad of his actions in and outside of Russia. And this is another example of that. But I mean, I guess to my question is, I guess, yeah, well, you know, how many Ukrainian people are going to have to suffer? Because at this point, we know Putin isn't going to give up. You know, then the sanctions do take a long time to work. And I'm going to ask the same question that I asked before: was is Ukraine being in NATO even like can we at least discuss a neutral position? And this is where there was a much better chance before Finland, before Sweden started giving weapons. You know, now they're pulling back from their neutrality. Now they're, you know, giving weapons to Ukraine, which I understand that, but I feel like there was a point in time when where neutral countries could have taken, you know, a hold and say, all of y'all stop. Let's just, you know, bring them completely out of the fold of these powerful forces. And that time is gone. But is there a way to get back to that? And this is where, like, even using it as a way to get peace, get people to the discussion table, I think is very much worth, because like people are dying right now.
So Marcus, you're of the opinion that if a deal was struck that guaranteed that Ukraine would not be a part of NATO, you think that could be a resolution to ending this invasion?
I mean, I can't predict the future, but I you know, we can look at history, and historically, when Ukraine is neutral, there's no invasion. Historically, when Ukraine is friendly to Russia, obviously there's no invasion. We need to look at these things seriously, juxtapose that with the lives that are being lost right now, and say, is this something worth talking about to get to the table, to get to at least a ceasefire to something?
Yeah, and speaking of lives being lost, Dwayne, I believe that we have a clip, if you will, of a Russian soldier that was read, that he texted his mother about what his thoughts were and what he was told going into. So, Dwayne, if we have that clip and if you can cue it up, and Bone, I want you to give us some insight from a soldier's perspective based on the clip that we're about to see.
Okay. You want me to look at the clip first?
Okay, so it's just the image. So it says, why has it been so long since you responded? Are you really in training exercise? Mom, I'm no longer in Crimea. I'm not in training sessions. And she responds, well, where are you then? Pop is asking whether I can send you a parcel. What kind of parcel, Mama, can you send me? Just want to hang out myself. What are you talking about? What happened? Mom, I'm in Ukraine. This is a real war raging here. I'm afraid we're bombing all the cities together, even targeting civilians. We were told that they would welcome us, and they are falling under armored vehicles, throwing themselves under the wheels and not allowing us to pass. They call us fascists. Mama, this is so hard. So Bone, it appears from this perspective that this Russian soldier was not told what Putin's real plans were. So Dwayne, if you could take us back to the four of us. And so, Bone, what I want to do is, am I overreaching there of saying that if this is indeed a text between a Russian soldier and his mama, and based on what he was saying, am I overreaching to say that it appears that he wasn't told the real reason that he was going into Ukraine? And maybe what does that mean? Does that give you some insight into possibly the morale of Russian soldiers just based on this one incident that we got insight to?
Absolutely. You are spot on. You can take all the high-tech weaponry, all of the intel, all of the entire war machine, and war is not fought and won with airplanes and rifles and tanks. Wars are fought and won on the hearts and mind of soldiers, and the profession of military science is based on what I'm told and what I believe. Now, even in a country like Russia, these folks don't just blindly follow the leadership and jump up and down like robots. They have to believe in the mission, and you have to believe that what you are doing is for the right purpose. That's why soldiers go to war. That's why military men are willing to give their lives for their country when they understand that it's a noble cause and that there is a true reason for doing what we're doing. And you can't ask somebody to sit out in the cold and the mud and starve. And I mean, these guys are not, I mean, logistics really to me is a standout for this entire war. You can't take 190,000 troops and amass them on the border and tell them to go over the hill, and you got no beans and no bullets and no fuel to do the mission. So it's a failed mission from the beginning. And when, as a soldier or a military person, you tell me that you want me to put my life on the line for something that is I realize later down the road is a bunch of BS. And you're going to have troops who either, hand over their weapons to the bad guys or turn around and go home. That's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah. So
can I just ask a question?
You go ahead.
Is it true? Is there a saying in the military that an army is only as good as its supply lines? An army can only go as far as its supply lines will take it.
Absolutely, no question about it. And so, if you saw the early video of some of these convoys coming into Ukraine from Belarus, what kind of convoy was that? It was 6 or 8 or 12 or 10 vehicles. Where was the fuel tanker? Where was as we call it, where was the chow wagon at? I mean, you got enough MREs and those kind of things in the back of the tank to last you for about 2-3 days. But you got a choice: carry chow or carry armament.
And Bone, that certainly might be an indication of how Putin underestimated the resolve of the Ukrainian people. And so with that said, listen, gentlemen, coming into tonight, President Biden is obviously going to get his State of the Union address. And it appears that he has some I would think far more positive things to say now than he had 2 weeks ago. And at the top of that list is the nomination for the first African-American woman to be a part of the U.S. Supreme Court. I think what he has done to rally NATO. And again, Marcus, as you said, when you got 8 oligarchs inside of Russia who are now saying, hey, man, I'm not in favor of this war, or you got the people of Russia now taken to the streets in protest to the sum of almost 6,000 people getting arrested. These are some unprecedented times, and it appears that unlike Trump and what he said, it appears that maybe, Marcus, am I being too soft to say that President Biden looked like he's handling this situation as of right now? I'd give him very much a passing grade, and I was very much on the fence with him as to his handling of it. But Marcus, let me hear from you.
I mean, I think that Biden is kind of in line with any, regular presidential, orthodoxy, saying kind of removing Trump. And then, I think I'm
glad you made
back.
That distinction.
Yeah, you go past, you ignore Trump, and then I think you go back. It doesn't really matter, Republican or Democrat. You're going to have this general support for, the international alliance. I do think that politically, strictly politically, Biden has got a uphill battle to sell any of this as a win, because and that's so I don't think that any of his actions, it's more of how they sell it to the American people. And I think it's very much hard to sell any of these actions as a victory while the war is still ongoing. And, I do understand that, these sanctions, they take time. I do understand that the oligarchs are getting hit in a little bit. But at the end of the day, the question is, where do people feeling the brunt of this? Where do they go? And I think there's a lot of people in Russia who are going to understand, hey, this is the result of what Putin is doing, but we need to question, is this going to drive them to Putin as the protector? And because also, too, is like we no longer exist in a unipolar world. We are now shifting, or at least realizing that, U.S. NATO hegemony isn't the biggest and baddest on the block. And that I gotta wonder, and I sorry because I gotta go get these kids to school, but that's what I'm wondering, and I'll take my answer offline for the gentleman is, does America have to realize now that Russia and China, and now in like the way Saudi Arabia is coming into these things, the game has changed to the point where even international affairs can't be solved with the strong man coming in and saying don't do that, and so I think that's my concern, and that's what's going to be when it comes to Biden. That perception of loss of United States power might hurt him a lot, and then ongoing with, I think what we all agree is there's some domestic policy failures, student loan debt, maybe not doing so well on COVID. I think this is going to compile into not a good look for Biden coming down the straight. So I agree. His actions are more in line with like U.S. president. He's being a regular, normal person on the international stage, which is something that we haven't had in a while. But
Marcus, I would give you pushback in this sense. If what we're hearing is that we've never seen the type of unity around NATO like we've seen now, you certainly got to give Biden credit for that. The other thing that I found absolutely amazing that Biden did, that this administration did, is that through intelligence, they were able to tap in and get Putin's playbook and announce Putin's playbook before he actually did the plays. And I got to tell you, if you're on offense and you have no timeouts, and the linebacker, based on your formation, is calling out what play you're about to run, that's a little disconcerting.
Well, yeah, absolutely, Brother Mac, though. If you know the play, you better make an interception. And the interception didn't happen. The war is still going on. They knew the play. They called it, but the play is still happening. And that's where I'm saying it's not necessarily about the actions, and that's where it too is like, I agree. I thought it was going to be a push into the Donbass region. He was going to try and pull another Crimea. I agree. Like, they called it tooth and nail. They had a bunch of Eastern Ukrainians come across the border, and then we got to they called it. But at the end of the day, the play still happened.
Yeah, hold on a second, Marcus. Dwayne, do we need to go right now? Because I know that we're running a little bit past time for Georgia. All right, good. Listen, there's so much to unpack here. And like, Brother Marcus, I got to thank you. Bone Barnes, thank you so much, Brother Rutherford. And look, man, I'm going to need you guys back. So stay right there because I'm certainly going to need you to come back. And so, Marcus, do you have to run now?
I got to, drop the kids at school, but I talked to David about coming back on at 9.
Okay, so, good. So you'll drop off. And Bone and Al, if you could stay with me, because it's going to take all three of us to sit in and hang with our sister Georgia Ford, who will be on the clock. So let's take a break here, and then we'll be back on the clock with Sister Georgia Ford.
All right, no problem.
I think I like it. Mystery, history to you, but girl, it's new to me. I wish that I could see it happen naturally, but I never saw it coming, baby. I never guessed that we could get this far. Well, honestly, I really don't know where we are, and would it be less fun if it was less bizarre? Cause we never saw it coming. Should have been so easy, but I feel incomplete thinking about you. Yeah, and I would just let you be, but I consistently think about you. Hoping that I won't see this, but for whatever reason
make sure y'all stay tuned, man. We got more coming up next. Oh, y'all make sure y'all stay tuned, man. All right, y'all. Let's some music till we get this show started. Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned. Good morning, y'all. Hope y'all can hear me.
Okay, we can take my Lambo. I'll put on a tight
Good morning, everybody. Mary
You
C.
sure you
S.
can handle?
Roaches, Shelby H.
We be faster than Jacob.
Yes, the Roaches, Dragon Daddy, Tyra G. Alicia, good morning. Man, what's going on? Lisa. Yeah, Miss
We
Little,
can
good
take my
morning to y'all. Good
Lambo.
morning, everybody.
I'll put on a tight show. You sure you can handle? We be faster than Jacob.
Can't stop, won't stop. I can't stop, won't stop.
All right. That's better for me. All right. Snack Panther, what's going on? Good morning.
Can't stop, won't stop. Can't
Laura,
stop, won't
good
stop.
morning to you.
Can't stop, won't
Roller
stop.
Dragon, Latino, good
Can't
morning.
stop.
Creative Impact, good morning. Promises Manifested, what's going on?
You sure
There
you can handle?
we go.
We can take my
Yeah, Hustler, good morning.
I'll put on a tight show. You
Lily,
sure
good
you
morning
can
to you.
handle?
Sunny Wright, what's going
We be
on?
faster than Django.
Rachel Atwood, Jason Marks, good morning, y'all. Sam, good morning.
I can't stop, won't stop. I can't stop, won't stop.
Good morning, Mama and Daddy. Good morning, my sweet, sweet Sarah. I love you, knees.
Can't stop,
Coming to see
won't
you
stop.
today.
Can't stop,
The
won't
Big
stop.
Piece, good morning. Brother Lateef, what's going on? Amber, what's going on? Good morning. Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned, man. We got more coming up next.
Can't stop. Can't stop.
Team 2001, good morning to you.
Ashamed, think something new under the sun. You can't take back them things you already done.
Sydney Butler, good morning.
You blame things that you do on somebody else. No, but they all see. But they
Brother
all
Bryce, good
see
morning.
that you need help.
All right, y'all. Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned.
But still,
Georgia is not with us this morning, but we do have a video from her. Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned, man. We're gonna get into that video coming up next. Mary C, good morning. Thank you, Infinite Content. What's going on?
hoping that one day something gon' change.
Cool. All right, y'all. We're going to drop that video. Y'all make sure that y'all stay tuned after this. Coming up next, yeah, Like It or Not, with Rebecca Azor. If Rebecca Azor gets in the club, we'll see. All right, y'all. On the Clock with Georgia Ford starts now. Good morning, y'all. I know. Hey.
We are tired. This journey is hard. We won't give up on our search for a hope, but nowadays it seems hard to find. It's been nearly 2 years since the murder of George Floyd, and in so many ways, our community is right back where we started. Most recently, Amir Locke was fatally shot by officers during the execution of a no-knock warrant. Deshaun Hill, a 15-year-old honor roll student and star athlete, was fatally shot in North Minneapolis. Our community expressed outrage following the sentencing of Kim Potter, and all of these things compounded are making us reflect. How far has our community really come? Today, we discuss how we can collectively and individually continue to make progress. But most importantly, how can we heal from everything that we've been through? I invite you to join us for a conversation about healing, hope, and health. To help us talk about healing and hope, Tiffany Daniels, Managing Director of the Minnesota Business Coalition for Racial Equity, and Samuel Simmons, Behavioral Consultant. On the health equity side from Children's Minnesota, President and CEO, Dr. Mark Gorelick, and Vice President and Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer, James Burrows. Welcome to our conversation about hope, healing, and health. I'm independent journalist Georgia Fort, and I want to invite you to participate in this conversation with us. If we're going to find real solutions that are going to help us heal, if we are going to restore hope in our community, it's going to take all of us doing our part and sharing what we know and what we're doing. So feel free to do so in the comments below. And please stick around. This conversation is not going to be that long. We'll be talking for about the next 30 minutes, but I do want you to stick around through the end because we have some important information about new policies, about health equity work that's happening here in the Twin Cities, and the ways in which we're all working together to combat health disparities. But first, we are in a very critical time where people are struggling to find hope. They're trying to figure out, how can I heal with all of this trauma around me? And I'm curious to know from each one of you, how are you approaching this? How are you incorporating some of these thoughts and needs from the community within the work that you're doing?
One of the things that we did earlier this month for MBCRE members was a healing and action session where we invited Dr. Joy Lewis to come in and talk about just radical self-care. And we had almost 500 participants join us virtually. And it was an incredibly powerful session because there's so much power in pausing and acknowledging what's happening in the community. And that's different, especially for some members that work in the corporate environment. So often when you work in the corporate space, you kind of shed your reality when you walk in and you're really focused on the task at hand. But there's so much happening in our community around us that we are now forced to bring our whole selves, bring everything that's happening in community to work, and to really figure out a way, how can we pause and reflect together and then start to talk about solutions?
Absolutely.
You know, my work is really around trauma, community trauma. Started working with male trauma because I think male trauma is always ignored, especially black male trauma. We're seen often as perpetrators and never as victims, and we're actually both, right? And so in that view of the dealing with men and dealing with the community, making it okay to really say, yes, this is happening to me and this is my experience, and making that okay, because historically
focus on the task at hand. But there's so much happening in our community around us that we are now forced to bring our whole selves, bring everything that's happening in community to work, and to really figure out a way, how can we pause and reflect together and then start to talk about solutions?
Absolutely.
You know, my work is really around trauma, community trauma. Started working with male trauma because I think male trauma is always ignored, especially black male trauma. We're seen often as perpetrators and never as victims, and we're actually both, right? And so in that view of the dealing with men and dealing with the community, making it okay to really say, yes, this is happening to me and this is my experience, and making that okay, because historically we've been so used to rolling with the punches as a community, right? And at times suffering in silence until we can't take it no more, and then we're out loud, right? And so part of my job lately, doing radio and doing podcasts and that kind of stuff, is to really help frame what's going on. Like, for example, how does a community heal when it feels like it's under attack is really the question, right? Under attack, not just externally, but internally. Because we don't have the choice of waiting for things to stop to heal. We have to do both, which might seem unfair, but I think that's one of the things that probably need to be talked about more.
you're talking about healing and hope, and I think if we want to have healing or hope, first of all, we have to have honesty. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is to, as we committed to as part of the CEO Action Pledge on Diversity and Inclusion, one of those pledges is to make our workplaces, to encourage open and honest conversation about issues around race, equity, injustice, disparities. And so we have tried to do that. And some of it is in the context of our employee resource groups, but also many other venues where James and I have several times engaged in conversations as part of our Grand Round series to really have these open and honest conversations where people can share their feelings about what's happening both internally within our organization and within our wider community as a first step towards generating that hope that we'll be able to actually take those issues on if we're frank about talking about them.
And just like Dr. Gorlick said, one of the things we're trying to do is educate folks on other realms of trauma. A lot of times you focus on what happened to other people in community. You don't focus on the trauma you're causing others. So we did a Grand Rounds recently called Medical Apartheid. It was a great book written, and us also, too, just thinks about what are we doing in the healthcare system to contribute to daily trauma that's keep going as well. The other thing we did recently was, I just thought about it, is I tried to stay away from inflicting more trauma. So Amir Locke was just murdered by police in a downtown apartment. Rather than call this guy but say, hey, let's write another statement because we won't run after George Floyd because it hit our hearts so much, I said, I'm going to stay away from that. I'm NBCRE, we're not going to write a statement. We're going to talk about what we're doing and not doing, and we're going to talk to the community about what needs to be done together. So inflicting trauma is sometimes just stopping what you have always done before, thought was the right thing to do, but you're actually inflicting more trauma. So I just think about that and just kind of resisted the urge this time.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sam, I know you brought up this point of the compounded trauma, right? And that's impacting our children in a much different way. They're internalizing this on multiple spectrums. Not only are they seeing people who look like them that are being killed by police, but then they're also seeing people like Deshaun Hill who are killed, gunned down in North Minneapolis, right? And so when you think of our children internalizing all of this trauma as community leaders, what is your approach when you're thinking about ways to help our children process and overcome these different griefs?
Well, part of it is us as adults being willing enough to really slow down enough to hear what the children are saying, right? And giving them an opportunity to say it the way they feel it. Because sometimes when kids say it the way they feel it, don't feel good as adults, right? And realize the focus has got to be on them and not on you, right? And that's a tough piece from a community that different generations have had their issues around listening to children, and, I'm old, so my generation, children didn't have no say-so, and then you have the younger generation of folks, it's like, they suffer too, and like I remember my father told me I had no right to be depressed because he had to buy my clothes. Well, that was old school, right? But we have to give children the opportunity to be honest about what they're feeling and be willing to say, you don't know. We don't always have the answers, which also brings your own humanity to yourself and allows them to realize I don't always have the answers, but what I'm feeling is what I'm feeling, and that's real. So how do we walk through this together?
You know what? Not surprisingly, at Children's Minnesota, we're really the kid experts. I mean, this is something that's near and dear to our hearts, and it is in fact really heartbreaking. I mean, we are in the middle of nothing short of a mental health crisis right now, for a lot of reasons. Related to the pandemic, related to all the events around racial inequity, increased realization around that in the last 2 years. But we're in the middle of a mental health crisis. We've joined with other organizations in declaring that, and it is disproportionately affecting our Black youth. They're more than twice as likely to attempt or think about suicide, for example. And we've seen a 50% increase in the number of kids coming to our emergency departments needing to be hospitalized. This is a couple of thousand kids a year coming in that need to be, that are being seen in our emergency departments. And so part of what we are doing is we're stepping up and, we need to deal with the entire continuum of care. We need to get upstream and prevent it, but we've got to deal with the crisis right now. And so we, later this year, will be opening for the first time an inpatient mental health unit that will be able to serve probably about 1,000 kids a year. And we anticipate that, at least half of those kids will be kids of color because of the disproportionate impact that they've been having.
And the key for that is how we expand those services. So how we open up the mental health unit, how we look at more community partnerships. We want to make sure that we're partnering with the community and not telling them what to do. So we're the kid experts in the medicine side. The community is the community expert on the community side. So bringing them to the table to say, okay, we're opening up mental health beds. If we're not willing to listen to how a black young male may exhibit his trauma and we're going to call the police or call security or get afraid, we're not ready yet. If we're not going to make sure we partner with community organizations like SAM, like Mother Ratoon, the Cultural Wellness Center, and others as well, to make sure that it's not only culturally responsive, but that we're just listening to community as well. And also, too, realize that we can say we don't have an answer. We have not done it right before. We've made some mistakes along the way, and we want to fix that. So how we open up that mental health unit, how we partner with the community is something we're going to focus on at Children's as well a lot this year.
Well, and I totally agree with that approach. Coming together, as I stated in the beginning of this conversation, it takes all of us, right, to play our role. And so, again, if you all are watching, would love to hear from you, your thoughts. The last question there, we're talking about children specifically internalizing all of this trauma from, them watching police killings online to seeing community violence and trying to figure out how to overcome their grief for their friends, for their neighbors, for their classmates. Would love to hear from you what you're doing in community to help children who are processing all of this trauma in real time. And I know each one of you stated something unique that your organization or that you're doing in community to help move the needle forward with health equity, with creating healing spaces, with restoring hope. But it's not just organizations and individuals in community doing work that's going to move us forward. It's also going to take policy change. Because when you look at these disparities, it's not just one organization. It's not just, one group over here. It is a systemic issue. And some of those issues need to be corrected by change in policy. So I know some of you all have partnered on different policies. Can you share your thoughts if you're working on different policies right now, or if you've already pitched it to the House, if it's in the Senate? Just catch us up on where you all are with your work on changing policies.
One of the unique things about MBCRE and the coalition is that it's a marriage of business and community, that we are at the table, business leaders and community leaders, kind of partnering and having conversations about what needs to happen and what needs to change. And policy is one of the things that we talk about a lot because, to your point, Georgia, when you think about systemic change, a lot of that leads us to the policy changes that are required. So one of the things that we do at the coalition is first and foremost to take a listening ear to community. This is not about the organizations or the companies that are members of the coalition building the agenda that we want to advocate for and that we want to advance in the legislature. It's about identifying those voices in community that are experts, identifying, those that are closest to the issues, making ourselves smart on that, building our empathy, and then assessing where can the business community play a role? What is the value that we can add to this conversation, and then building an agenda there. We've recently built our policy agenda for the current legislative session, and there are a number of issues on it. I mean, we're talking today, I was just at the Capitol, I'm talking about the Crown Act, which is up for a vote on the House floor today, and we're trying to encourage the Senate for a hearing. But that is an issue that is important as we think about the ability for our Black men, women, and children to show up as their first full selves at school and the workplace. In our policy agenda, we talk about housing, right, and the importance of preserving and constructing affordable housing. We're talking about workforce readiness and how we can increase funding for those programs. We talk a lot about public safety as well, and influencing the post board and all the things that are really related to the systemic changes that are really driving where we are today and what we're seeing and feeling in community.
Well, my work is really working with other organizations in terms of informing their policy, in terms of being, having them look at different kind of ways to address their policy issues, right? One of the things that we've been offering is this whole thing around compassion and accountability. How do we balance the policies that we have in terms of having that compassion for all of our clients and all the communities, and including that in the work you're doing. So it's more consulting with other organizations around that.
It does feel like policy just takes forever to catch up, right? And especially at a time like this where it seems like not a lot gets done at the government level. But we do need to have policies. If we're going to address structural racism, we have to have policies that change those structures. And, for me, I'm occasionally accused of being too political when I advocate for policies that affect the health and well-being of kids. And my point is, we need to do that. If we're going to advocate for the health needs of kids, that means advocating for policies that affect them. We try not to be partisan about it, but we absolutely have to be political in the sense of being willing to make statements, to do outreach to legislators and policymakers, say, these are things that harm kids. This is what you need to do to change that if we want kids to be healthier.
I'd add to that, Georgia, we need to have policy and practice, too. So government relations folks at NBCRE for all the different companies are there weighing in the policy. But it can't be that I go back to your company, your practice is out of line with your policy statement. So one of the things we did recently is our good friend Shaletta sent us a letter at NBCRE and said, great, y'all come together for all this great stuff for black people. What about black media? Are you using us? Are you leveraging us? Are you sitting down with us? Are you paying us like you're paying white media? And rather than go into policy discussions, what I talked to our VP of Marketing and Comms, Hillary Shea, about what can we do and how can we meet? So now we've engaging black media. We're paying black media. We have things that are running on black media. That's the practice. You're welcome. That's the practice, because a lot of people say you got to wait until the policy changes. I can't do this. Got to talk to my lawyers. No, you don't. Change your practice and invest. And I challenge other companies to do the same. We're not perfect at Children's. We never claim to be, but I challenge other companies to change your practices as well, to work on your policies hand in hand too.
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead, Sam.
I mean, he bring up such a great point. It's like, I'm a consultant. I'm, private consultant. It's interesting how folks will want you to come in, and then you tell them how much you charge, and you already know you're charging less than your white counterpart. And then they start talking to you, well, I don't know if we got the money and all like that, and then get their feelings hurt. Well, I'm not doing that. Yeah. And because sometimes they're not used to folks of color that's saying, no, I'm not doing that. That's right. And so those practices leads to better policy changes, right? And using the black media. Because the thing is some of our disparities in our community is about with the community haven't had time to sit back and understand. Because the community is only as strong as the information it's given. Mm-hmm. And just dealing with my clients, there's a lot of things that we assume they should know, but they don't know because they're struggling with their trauma every day. So they're in the moment. They're not. And so as leaders and that kind of stuff, if we're not giving them the information in a language they understand, then we're just, pontificating to make ourselves feel good. And I call that, emotional masturbation. Saying stuff that makes you feel good, not doing nobody else any good. So,
and to Sam's point, not emotional masturbation, but to his other point about knowing your worth. Trauma is inflicted in our community in the business setting too.
Right.
We've been traumatized so much, especially as black people, we undervalue ourselves and our work. So people have come to me before and said, hey, James, this is what I charge. I'm like, well, this is what was charged 20 years ago.
Right.
Go back and look at what the market started. You're valuable. You're great at what you do. Right. And I've had to, on occasion, push prices up to consultants and contractors to say, this is what you're worth.
Right.
This is what other people are charging. So that trauma affects our business community as well.
Yes.
Well, and that's what true equity looks like.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And not asking people in communities of color to come to the table to volunteer or to share their ideas or expertise to move the needle on something that you're going to get funding on. That's not equity. That might be inclusion, but that's not equity, right? And so this topic about policy, circling back to policy change, James, you talked about it not just being about policy. We can't always wait for the policy to catch up, or nor should we. Sometimes we can take action on our own within the companies we work in, within the communities we live in, where we go to church. We can start to shift culture by our own choices. But there are some things, specifically in our community, where we do need policy change. And I've seen, when circling back to, the hope and the healing piece, I've seen a lot of people lose hope when you look at changes in local policing, because we haven't seen the change in policy, right? And so what do you say to those people? And I know nobody here, none of us are experts on policing. That's not what I'm asking us to discuss. But when everybody was paying attention, and it's hard sometimes in our community to get people to pay attention to policy change, but everybody was paying attention to policy change for policing, and the government didn't deliver. There's holdup in the Senate, even on a federal level. The George Floyd Policing Act wasn't passed despite global response to his murder, right? So how do we get our community engaged and restore hope that we can get the policies that we need, that we can get our political leaders on board to invest and vote in policies that are going to produce more equitable outcomes?
Yeah, I think first into the community engagement piece, it starts with just that, staying engaged and recognizing that policy change does take a very long time, right? Like, we are trying to dismantle systems that were erected over hundreds of years. And so there is a little bit of patience required. And also recognizing that the context can sometimes shift, and it can change the conversation around something, right? And the urgency around it may feel different, right? So if the topic around, no-knock warrants, for example, comes up 2 years ago, there may be something like we're dealing with right now that makes that conversation feel more timely, and then you have another opening to have that policy conversation. But you have to have that foundation or that context that this takes a long time, but you cannot give up, right? Like, the policy change, given that it does take a long time, it is one of the places where we have to stay focused as a community.
I think sometimes it's so difficult for community because, again, they're struggling with that everyday life in terms of the trauma. But one of the things that I do know that when we talk about community safety, the relationship with the police and the community is very, very important for community safety. We might want to think, we talk, the thing came up about defunding the police or whatever, but we got different people in our communities who don't know no other way, right? I'm, even though I look good, but I'm an old man. And so if you attack me, I'm calling the police. At the same time, I have a difficult relationship with them at the same time. And so how do we work through that, right? But if we really want part of the issue around community safety is that relationship, and we have to approach these power to be that if you say you're really in on this, we really need to look at that from a relational kind of thing. If you say this relationship is important, in your response will let me know how important this relationship is to you.
I hate to be a downer, but I have to tell you, when I talk to some of my white colleagues and family and so on, and I hear the, compared to 2 years ago, the at best indifference and to a large extent a backlash, I'm not all that optimistic that policies are going to change anytime soon. But to get back to James's point, and this is what I appreciate so much about James, is he pushes me this way, is say, look, in the meantime, what are we going to do to act differently and to show up differently, both to the patients and families that come to us and in our community, while we wait for those policies to catch up.
Yes. And it has to be consistency. I mean, the reality is, if you live with a house that's a Democratic House, a Senate that's Republican Senate, and you still have bipartisan politics, people may vote a certain way. But if you show up every day, all day, each hearing, making sure you contact your representatives, you can see change. When I worked for Governor Dayton's office, Philando Castile was shot and killed by police, murdered by police. There was no conviction. But people consistently started to show up. The Castile family, other families started to show up. When George Floyd happened, those families mobilized together. And although we're not there yet by any means, some public safety legislation did get passed 2 years ago. But to Mark's point, it's not enough. So we want to make sure we keep doing that as well. And the other thing I'll say is, you got to make sure that you are dealing with your own trauma as you are protesting, as you are marching, as you are down the Capitol as well. Short story, Georgia, and this is part of my trauma I'm sharing just today. Last Thursday, in front of my house, police come, they smash into a vehicle right in front of my house, right in front of my doorway, and then 6 police cars are surrounding someone who's in the car, with guns. He puts his hands out the window. I'm watching for 10 to 15 minutes from my window, 5 feet away, AR-15, shields, and everything. I'm like, man, am I another Darnella Frazier about to capture this on video and deal with my own trauma? They got him out of the car, and they didn't do any harm to him. I found out a news story later that this same guy was around the complex that I live in shooting bullets, about 40 bullets, prior to this happening. I left 5 minutes before with my daughter, got back 5 minutes before sitting on my couch in front of that he could have been shooting up, and some people in the complex were shot. My point is, I got to deal with that trauma as a black man and making sure that I can still fight forward and push forward around that. And that's not easy, because I've been fighting for this for a long time. It took me a while. And this whole weekend, I was like, you know what, JB, what do you do? And part of calling Sam, it's funny, I called Sam before that happened. The Lord was like looking out like, man, Sam's here now. That's your boy. Y'all need to talk through that and chat through that too. So part of that pushing forward and being policy and practice and all that, we got to take care of ourselves. We got to heal from within and also talk with each other as well. So,
and that's not a regular practice for our community. Right, so there's a teaching moment internally we have to do. So it's got to be internal and external. And not everybody's good at different stuff. I'm not good at, marching or whatever, but the things I'm good at, I'm willing to share with each other, both the system and our people. So to be more objective, because it is, as I mentioned, this whole battle of feeling under attack externally and internally, which no community should have to go through, but we don't. We have to deal with what's given.
And it's complicated. It's complex. There's layers.
Right.
There's a dynamic approach that we can take to finding solutions for restoring hope, for our healing, for combating these health disparities. And I feel like in many ways, we're just now starting to scratch the surface. But as we prepare to wrap up our conversation, are there other things that we haven't touched on that you think are important for our audience to hear, for our community to know about the work that you're doing, or maybe even just things that you want to leave people with? James, you gave a great point about take care of yourself. That's so critical. I mean, as we're fighting to move the needle forward, trying to combat some of these disparities, it's easy to say, I'll take care of myself tomorrow. But if we don't take care of ourselves, if we're not here, we can't keep fighting the fight. So as we wrap up, any final words you'd like to leave our audience with today?
One of the things that I think keeps me engaged and keeps that fire in my belly is just the reminder of how urgent this work is. And when I think about the work of the coalition and us coming together after the murder of George Floyd, that need is still there. And so on those days when the conversation is difficult, or our white counterparts and allies may not have that same fire and they don't feel that same urgency, I'm reminded of the tremendous need in community. And also the importance of fortifying myself as a leader in this work to then show up in a certain way, right? It's, I have the lived experience as a Black person and being here, and I'm experiencing it all just like everyone in community. But then having to, do my self-care and be relentless about it so that I can show up and lead the conversations and continue to push our corporate community towards action.
Well, one of the things is I know that it was mentioned that some of my white counterparts are all worried about violence and have their approach and that kind of stuff. But I want to leave them with this. When you are dealing with folks who are highly traumatized, punishing them don't improve nothing. Because if you know how to be, because a lot of our young people, unfortunately, know how to be punished, but they don't know how to be loved. So think about that if you really want to get some real outcomes in the long term.
I know you know this. Minnesota has some of the biggest health disparities in the country. Not because everybody else is doing it great. It's just we happen to be the worst of the worst. But, so we've got a lot of work to do. We're not going to fix it ourselves. But I can tell you that at Children's Minnesota, we are committed to addressing health equity. We've made it an organizational priority. We are working on closing those gaps, both in what we do within our walls and then really trying to partner more authentically with our community to figure out how do we address those multiple things that are contributing to that.
And I'll finish by saying we're also hiring more diversity as well. So of the last 800 to 900 people we've hired, 40% of those have been people of color. And we have a goal every year to hire 34% people of color, not across the board, but also in leadership roles too, to increase that diversity. We started off when I came, 0% of the people reporting to the CEO were people of color. Now 33% are black, in different leadership roles. Hold us accountable, I'll say, to the community as well. So we're doing some good stuff. I'm proud of it. But check me when you need to, as I used to say growing up in Detroit. Check me, say, hey, you're not doing up and showing up where you need to show up. I'll keep doing that. But also, too, hold others accountable. Don't let them just come to your space and place and say what they're going to do or pretend to do. Hold them accountable as well. And then the last piece about, self-care. Just so you all know, I'm the worst at self-care. I got 20 million mentees. I got 20 million things to do. So hold me accountable, too. When I say that out loud, part of me saying that was, hold me accountable. Say, hey, JB, we got this. We got you, too. So hold your friends accountable, lift them up as well, and love them, as Sam just talked about. It's easy to punish each other. It's easy to talk about each other. It's hard to love each other in a community that's been so traumatized.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, James, Dr. Gorlick, Sam, Tiffany, I so appreciate you being here today and the work that you all are doing in our community to make it better, to improve some of these inequities that we have. And I think that it's important to have these conversations so that we're connected, so that we're aware that there are people in this community who truly care and who want to see improvement in some of these spaces. And so I truly thank you all. And I want to encourage those of you who are watching to share ways that you're working to move the needle in our community. And just know that you're not doing this work alone. So thank you all for being here, and thank you for watching. Take care. Today's conversation was made possible with support from the kid experts at Children's Minnesota.
Ladies and gentlemen, hope that you enjoyed that segment, man. Shout out to Georgia Ford and the work that she's doing. Awesome work. And hope you enjoyed that, man. Make sure that you leave some comments, man, and words of for Georgia, there, man. Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned. Like it or not, it's coming up next. Rebecca Azor is in the building. Good morning, everybody. To everybody that attended the patron party. I hope that you were able to go get you guys burgers that we discussed at the patron party. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Had a whole bag of them. It was awesome. All right, y'all. Make sure that y'all stay tuned. 5 hours.
Tell me
you know what? Never mind.
But now you're saying you have to go, just like a lightning from a clear sky.
And to the guy who invented zero, thanks for nothing.
There's nothing but a cloudy sky, and there's no day.
What's the night? Good morning.
Now I'm sitting all by myself, trying to see the light in the dark.
Lawrence said I ain't do nothing, and that was all of y'all. I ain't do nothing but play. All I do is spin records.
I guess I'm living in the dark age, because I sure can't see no light. Ever since you left, there's been nothing.
Shut up, Kessie. I ain't did nothing this morning yet. Leave me alone. Anyway, y'all, we're gonna get into our new Twitch subscribers that we have. Yvonne Trey resubscribed, or Yvonne Trey subscribed. Welcome to the Industrial Arts. Resubscribed. Been subscribed for 11 months. Andy from Ohio resubscribed. And they have been subscribed for 16 months. Shout out Andy. At Jam Tune resubscribed. They've been subscribed for 11 months. Fellow Twitch streamer Marcus for Left Flank Vets. What's going on, Marcus? Resubscribed as well, and it's been subscribed for 6 months. I know I messed it up. Resubscribed and commented, I'm so sick of my white liberal friends complaining to me how China treats ethnic minorities. It's like, hello, let's look in the mirror, America. They've been subscribed for 2 months. Agnostic Sister resubscribed, been subscribed for 5 months. Jam Tune gifted subscriptions to Stream Elements. And Neon Death 07, an anonymous user, gifted a community subscription. Oh, let me find out Anonymous is watching us. Murderino Dragon resubscribed, and they've been resubscribed for 9 months. ABTAR 143 gifted subscriptions to Ebsta68, OG Prodigy Twitch, and fellow streamer $27. $27 like that. And the Chicken Fried Dragon also gifted a 6-month subscription. Okay, Chicken Fried Dragon, to the Pascal Show. So shout out Chicken Fried Dragon, man. When I tell you she is all over the place, and we love it, we appreciate you, we need it. And if you have not already, act.tv/join, patreon.com/likeitordnot, all that good stuff. Yeah, no. Y'all stay tuned, man. Like It or Not is coming up next with Rebecca Azor.
All of my friends say, girl, you better take care, 'cause that man is trouble, you best beware. And though deep down I know I might be headed for teardrops, now that you got me started, I just can't stop. No, 'cause I love you, baby. I can't let you go, baby. I gotta tell you that I won't. I've been looking for love so true. When I was down and out, along came you. Though you might be a liar and a cheat too, I just can't quit you now 'cause I love you. Yes, I do. I can't let you go, baby. I can't let you go, baby. 'Cause I love you, I love you, I love you. No, no, no.
All right.
'Cause I love you, baby. No, 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 no.
All right, ladies and gentlemen,
Can't let you go.
you know what time it is.
'Cause I love you, yeah. There was
We're going to do the abbreviated version today since it's already 9:21. So like it or not, it's about to go down.
Like it or not, it's going down.
Like it or damn. Why you screaming?
Y'all stick around. Oh, Rebecca Azor.
is coming through. You know she got us. Welcome to Zoom, Rebecca. Welcome to Zoom. It look like that. It sound like that dirty Florida bass. That's my dog. You remember how you sound in Florida? He's a politics bro. I am your DJ. DJ exclusive. Right. Y'all know who I am. I stay dropping all over the place. Like it or not, it's going down. Like it or not, y'all stick around. Oh, like it or not, it's starting now. Like it or not, it's about to go down.
Like It or Not with Benjamin Dixon starts now.
Right. Here.
Oh.
Good
yeah,
morning.
my
Good morning.
Hi,
Good morning. Girl, your hair.
It's all over the
You ain't even let me get the good morning out.
Look, Bubba.
Let me try to get a
you ain't
good
hear me
right.
before. You ain't hear me when you was talking. I told her her hair was taking up most of her screen.
It is.
Right.
I'll get my lighting correctly. It is.
I feel
well,
like I
good
need to-
morning. Welcome to Like It or Not.
Well, we're free to tell the truth and not care who doesn't like it.
Thank you. Thank you. Marcus, how are you? I hear that we just
I look so
we never
digital.
run into each other.
Well, I thought there was some type of, conspiracy going on, and like one time, hey, that's a coincidence. 2 times, don't worry about it. I know Rebecca's busy as hell, but it's like 4 or 5 times. And I had the question. I was like, what's up? Did I say something wrong? I was just kind of curious but I'm happy to be here. Finally the powers have conjoined and we're about to blow the internet up. And
we both got a little side piece. We both got a little side piece going on with the hair. I'm feeling it. No, there was it was never a reason.
That's
that
fine.
We didn't. You see it? It's giving me bang.
I got a beard. Look.
Yeah.
And that works too. But it was never that it was never a conspiracy theory. I just never knew when you would come on. I would just turn on the TV from my busy day because I'm booked and busy, right? For the corporate world. I would just turn on the television and then see you. And I'm like, who is this man? And finally, I've gotten an opportunity to be on the show with you. So thank you for coming on today and filling in for the powers that used to be. Rebecca runs it today and every day on this show. There's so much going on in the world. And I want you to be a part of the conversation. So I wanted to start off by, it is Women's History Month. I know that Black History Month is over and the white people are relieved that all of the Black History stuff is going to go on sale and be out of the store and out of their views in just a few days here. But, for us, Black history never ends. And for a moment for us to celebrate Black people will never end. Black history is for us every single day. Celebrating Black people is for us every single day. And it is Women's History Month. So you know what we do with that. We just going to take Black women and talk about Black women for Women's History Month. And I wanted to just mention quickly, the new Supreme Court Justice and, her making history being a Black woman. And, first and foremost, again, it is Black History Month. I mean, not Black. It might as well be Black History Month, but it's Women's History Month. And a lot of people wanted to make such a big deal about Ketanji Brown Jackson being nominated. And I think, and I mean a lot of people like white folks, they have themselves up in arms about this. They're making it such a big situation, saying that, this is what America has come to. We're focusing on, nominating somebody or putting somebody in this space because of their skin color. Well, that's why we ain't put them in that space before, because of their skin color, right? So now we're looking at the credentials. We're looking at the fact beyond them being women or male or whatever. And it just sucks that we have to be in a time where we're still in a place where it's the first Black. But if you think that we're not going to congratulate and celebrate that moment, because it is a big deal for us, with the historical limits that have been placed on Black people, no matter their credentials, no matter their qualifications, I'm glad that we are able to get to this point. So shouts out to Ketanji Brown for this. And women.
Yeah, I mean, I think to the point too is that when it comes to Black people having the credentials to be on this United States Supreme Court, that's been since day one. You tell me that Frederick Douglass could have done a better job than the rest of these racists that occupied these positions for so long. So this is not some type of new phenomena that even white America wants to project of like, well, now it's time because we've invested in Black people to make them qualified. Black people been qualified, and so I think it's like that brings that finally really into perspective, is that we're talking about it. If things were fair, if things were about your actual work, it wouldn't have taken this long. But that's why we're here. And politically, though, I think the Biden administration shouldn't have said anything. I think they should have just came out with a list of all Black women and then watch them squirm. But we're here now, because. But I'll just say that is that this is a finally that I think needs to be all caps and 3 exclamation points, because Black people have always been qualified for any of these positions.
Ooh,
that part.
Yes, look, that part right there.
Y'all, forgive me, y'all, for my choppy internet today. I got the family internet going on, so forgive me, y'all. Okay,
it's giving full 10-second delay. We don't know when to come in. We don't know when to go. But
you see what I'm saying, right?
Once I hear you, I'm gonna stop speaking to make sure you get up in there. How about that?
Hey, you know what it is, Bubba? Your internet wasn't ready for Rebecca to be on time today. It just shot.
That's what it was.
Just shot the whole system. We're just throwing everything.
It shot everything. When she said I'm here, I'm like, God dang, it's 9 a.m. and she's on time.
Right. And so I'll say this. Yesterday.
Oh God, here we go.
Hold on, my bad. I ain't mean to start this yet, because y'all was talking serious topics.
We're gonna run it by the people who are just tuning in and witnessing me being attacked on my own show in front of guests. But yesterday, I was attacked.
Marcus ain't no guest no more. It's like when you go to somebody's house, once you've been there 2 or 3 times, you ain't no guest no more. You just go help yourself with what's in the refrigerator. So Marcus ain't no guest.
Yeah, you privy to all the arguments and everything.
Yeah, not me though, because I've been away. I've been away from the house, and I'm the one that pays the mortgage on this house. So he's a guest in my home. He's a guest in my home. But no, so we can't be doing this too much. But I just wanted to acknowledge that yesterday, I was saying hello and showing love to everyone, and I said in our group chat for Like It or Not, and for the Benjamin Dixon Show, we have all of us in this group chat, including the producers, and I said, hey, something along the lines of, good morning, I hope that you guys have a beautiful day, right? And everyone was responding real kindly, loving what I said, and here comes Dwayne, just attacking. He said to me something like, what you said? It was something disrespectful along the lines of like, why?
You got boo. That's what you got. It was boo.
Yeah.
He booed me first. And then as, the day continued, he was putting in GIFs to attack me and saying how I'm never on time and things like that. And his GIFs were coming in like really tiny, and letting me know that he has like an iPhone 3. So I'm like, how you disrespecting me in this chat with your iPhone 3? And then on top of that, had the nerve. had the nerve to tell me that, I'm never on time and things like that. And I'm like, but you're only here 2 days a week and things like that. And why are you? And then he attacked me all day, y'all. I feel like it was from the morning to like literally midnight, right?
I had time yesterday.
And I felt like you have a child, like go change diapers. Like, where is the time coming from? And but I told him that I'll be here on time. I almost feel like they bet against it, but I told him I'll be here on time. And was I not here at 9 o'clock?
We do have a running bet on when you be here on time.
Yeah, you was.
Because it's like, it'd be like once in every blue moon. I think it's a full moon today because you was on time today.
But yesterday was just because I hadn't seen you in so long. I had been away for a couple of days, so I had to get my little jokes off. That's all.
That's like, but you had time though. You're a ghost.
I was at work. I was in our studio, so I was at work and we was recording something. So I was like, I seen your text come through and I was like, oh, this is perfect timing. I got a few minutes on my hands. Let me go ahead and respond real quick.
To be evil.
It was like that.
But y'all don't get it twisted. Rebecca was throwing shade as well too. I don't want to think that it was just Dwayne being the only one. All the rest of us was just in the chat like eating popcorn. Rebecca was coming too. Look, both of their asses all over the place all day yesterday. My phone blowing up. I had like 1,000 messages.
Then I had to defend myself. So it wasn't just one sided. It wasn't just one sided. But go ahead, Rebecca. I'm gonna let you get back to your show. I ain't even want to. Once you said it was Women's History Month, I said, you know what, we shouldn't even do this today because I don't want to. I'm gonna let Rebecca have her day and get on her tomorrow. But no, that's all.
It's a whole month.
It's Women's History Month, so you're gonna let me have the day and not the month?
No. So we talk about equality and all
Marcus,
that.
this is what I go through all the time, Marcus.
Can't give you special treatment. We gotta go back to the way things were. You gonna get these jokes. I give you 1 day of pass for not getting the jokes, but after that, it's back to business as usual. We're gonna respect you always, but you're gonna get these jokes.
Anyways, we'll get back to that before today's show ends. Thank you, Marcus, for being on here. This is not how it usually is, but
the only thing I have to add is that, Bubba, you might need to get some nice sound, or maybe like play some dramatic music. When the argument starts coming in. There's something about the ambiance that might be a little bit lacking, but we can work that in post production.
In post production, right?
Okay. We'll talk about that. Listen, over the weekend, not the weekend, what was the Monday? Yesterday, friend to the show, best friend to the show, Olay, had conducted a rally, and that was the Get on the Freedom Bus demand release for people at Rikers Island yesterday, February 28th. She filled up buses, which was beautiful, to head over to Rikers to demand for the release of people that they've been holding hostage in a way. So David, who's one of our producers, was out there, and he actually documented most of the whole thing. In this first clip that we'll play, it's going to be Olay speaking to Rikers history, how the facility has been open for 90 years, and it holds people awaiting trial who could not afford bail. She says 90 years of state-sanctioned slavery. Let's take a listen.
My name is Olayemi Olurin, and I have a question for each and every one of you. If we're innocent until proven guilty, then tell me why thousands of our brothers and sisters have been packed into cells when they haven't had a trial and they haven't been convicted of a crime. Rikers is a pre-trial detention center. The people trapped behind those walls have not been convicted of a crime. They simply do not have the money for bail. If one of us is caged, none of us is free. Because believe you me, if at any point in time a price tag can be placed on your freedom, you are never truly free at all. In the last year alone, 15 people have died in Rikers. As of last night, 16. The first death for the year has happened. I want you to really think about what's beyond us. What's beyond this bridge. I want you to think about the walls. I want you to think about the gates. I want you to take into the barbed wire. And I want you to really think about this fact. Think about the magnitude of the security around that prison and realize this. It's not just meant to keep those people trapped inside. It's meant to keep us from looking in. Because you can't fix problems you don't know exist. You can't be outraged by horror stories you never hear and you're never told. You can't truly sympathize with the people who have been othered and silenced. And you certainly can't call for the dismantling of a system you don't see at work. Since 2001, over 370 people have died in the system. Rikers opened in 1932. 1932. That's 90 years. That's 90 years of torture. That's 90 years of rape. That's 90 years of extreme violence. That is 90 years of state-sanctioned slavery. 90 years of imprisoning poor black and brown people because they don't have the money to purchase their freedom. How much is too much? How much unspeakable trauma lives behind those walls? How many deaths is too many?
I am so proud of Olay for conducting this and taking the opportunity to actually go up there and talk about something that, we've all known, we've all seen in articles and people have spoken about, but she pulled up, okay? She pulled up with a bus full of people to talk about these issues. I think that, her pointing out the different issues that are happening there. It's not only that they're holding people, but there's rape, there's murder happening there. People are in these extremely terrible health conditions who aren't getting the medical needs because they're in this jail that they feel like a lot of the people there feel like they should be treated in that way because they're being jailed. This is a part of them being reprimanded. And I don't understand, and I don't understand, why this is not something that is publicized. And when it is publicized, it's only, in a lower level. I feel like this is something that should be all over the place. Marcus. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was muted. I think what Olay is doing is incredibly important and really commendable. It's something like I've done a reading group with people in prison. And, it gives you a very, then that's when she said it keeps you from looking in. That really hit close to home because the first time I walked into the prison for the reading group, I was terrified, because I'd never been in a prison before. I've been in a jail. We don't got to talk about that. But when you realize that there's human beings inside of these cages, you have to start really rectifying with what our society, we are doing to these human beings. Then you get to the point where, and that's my position, or at least my situation, those are people who were convicted. Now let's get to Rikers. Right, where this free, liberty-loving society somehow only takes poor people and locks them up for pre-conviction, and then you get into how is the treatment, right, within these facilities, and it's just a multi-layered atrocity, right, that is not only affecting people in Rikers, but this is across the nation. And I think what's really troubling is that for all the good work Olay is doing, there's a lot of people who are using, getting rid of cash bail, which is one of the big, problems in this situation, as the reasons for a false rise in crime or false rise in violent crime. And that's also a narrative that we got to push back. Not only that these institutions are wrong, but also tearing down these institutions are not making our communities less safe, right? If that was, if prisons worked, would there be crime in prisons? Would you talk about rape and beatings and murders? Would you talk about that stuff inside prisons? Drugs? Does it work? Does this work? Obviously, no. We need to start talking about real solutions.
Yes, and you're right. Go ahead, Bubba. Do you have anything to say? I want to make sure I get you in there because you know your internet is off, and I want to make sure I miss your commentary.
I will say I can't stand you, but it's gonna take like a minute to get to you, so I can't stand you. But no, y'all said it all good, man. I'm proud of Olay for what she's done, and I'm glad she's getting it out there. And everyone needs to see these things. Of course, you know, you have to push hard to get it to that mainstream, but mainstream is not always the way to go. You got to get it through the black media outlets first, and those smaller independent media outlets to make sure they're getting it to their people as well too. So shout out to Olay for what she's doing.
Yeah, getting your hands dirty and being on the scene. I love that about Olay. I also love that about our own Georgia Ford, you know, being out there in the front lines. At this rally, you know, she continued and she took it further. She talked about one of the inmates, the 11th inmate to die, the second one in a week back in fall of 2021 out there. And his name was, I believe it was Stephen Cadu. And the mother of this inmate, she made sure she brought the mother of this inmate there to actually tell the story herself. Let's take a listen.
Again, every mother who has a son in jail, in its jail system, should be outraged. Any human being should be outraged, let alone a mother that's not getting up and speaking. I'm speaking for every person in that building. Every mother, again, should be outraged on the system, on how they treating people. Take action. Do something. Say something. Speak up. Do something. Then, if the Department of Correction cannot keep people alive, if the Department of Correction cannot keep people alive, they should not have them there. They should let them go. They should not be in their custody. They need to decarcerate today. No human being should be in jail awaiting trial and die. My son died because of an inhumane system. My son died because of meningitis. Meningitis, something that could have been curable, but they keep putting our black and brown people in there to die. When are the judges? When are the DAs? When are they going to take accountability for what are they doing? How many more parents need to stand like me? This is my daughter here. I wake up now with one child when I had 2 kids for my whole entire life. Decarcerate today. Thank you.
A lot of people might listen to what she's saying and hold on to the fact that she said the word decarcerate, and say, you know, in the same way that some people feel about defunding. When, you know, we're talking about decarcerating or, you know, removing this type of system that does not help people who are imprisoned. It's basically saying there are people who are sitting in jail for no reason at all, for petty things or whatever, and being subjected to not getting the medical help that they need, not being able to eat properly, you know, the conditions that they're staying in the cells are terrible, not being able to use a proper working toilet or, you know, there's a lot of things that go into this. This is what decarcerate today means. We shouldn't be holding people for small things while other people are getting off, you know, literally people who are at the Capitol 75 days in prison. This is what we're talking about here. But we're like, when I think about this mother, not saying that she, you know, had 2 kids and now she only has 1 because her son died of meningitis. Not too long ago, I was watching a video, and I'm forgetting where the video took place, but I was watching a video of a young woman who was literally dying and begging for assistance, who was sick and believed to have been poisoned allegedly by one of her white cellmates. And she was literally dying, throwing up, and they reprimanded her for asking for help. They literally moved her from the cell with her cellmates into another cell, and then where she was, when she just kept begging for assistance and help, to the point where they brought her to a cell where she was by herself. She couldn't even move, tried to stand up in her own feces and everything, tried to stand up, ending up hitting her head on the metal bunk bed. And that's why I just kind of
I'm to the point where there's so much more that goes into decarceration. We're leaving parents childless. We're killing women without any explanation. We're not giving anybody any medical help. And to hear this account from the mother is totally, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm happy I had time to just, calm myself down a little bit.
Yeah.
This is, it's just, you said it, this is like heartbreaking. But I think, and what you're saying too is very important that the narratives of decarceration, of defunding the police, of prison abolition, that these aren't things that are taken and just to show like, oh, they just want to get rid of it, because this does not involve just, slapping C4 to the wall of every prison, blowing up the walls and saying, well, looks like we solved that problem. No, it's about creating a society in which these things are not necessary. It's about accurately identifying the problems that are happening, that are on full display. It's about solving those problems. And there's just so many huge ones that are apparent. Cash bail, imprisoning people who are not guilty of any type of, like, not even a threat to society. You're only being held because of you're poor. That is insane. And to think that this is also the government, like, you can't tell me that these people belong in prison while George Bush, off of over 1 million Iraqis, is sitting free. This doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense.
You said that, Marcus.
Yeah, he definitely said that. And when, like I said, we go back to moments like where the Capitol happened, and we were just getting news of the man that was holding the damn, Capitol property and walking off, taking pictures. Right. These people are getting 75 days. These people are getting special treatment, special diets, the option to speak to lawyers. And these are people who were these are domestic terrorists, but people who are in jail for things like weed, a little bit of theft, you know what I'm saying? Like just standing on a corner, accusations that haven't even been proven. There's so much, right? Who are serving like life sentences, you know what I'm saying? Or not being able to go and call someone. Some people who are only in Rikers for a few days, few weeks, not being able to go call someone. Some people who have I remember we were talking about dollar bails and things like that. Not even able to go speak to a lawyer or get that opportunity because for some reason, Rikers believes that, to hold them there and not give them anyone to talk to is going to be something that helps them go back into the world to be a better person. I don't know what system, what idea, the system is broken, and it's especially broken for people who look like us. But Olay has been on the show, and she's even shown how when it was, there were no more beds, no more places to put anybody, any person at Rikers. And they were all on top of each other in the middle of the pandemic. This is at the height of the pandemic. They were all on top of each other looking for little spaces to sleep. Few of them had masks on. Some of them were probably coming out. And the only reason that they probably had masks on was because they were just thrown in there from going, from being jailed, from going out, or whatever the case may be. The Rikers, the whole system of it, they do not care. But so much money is being put into other areas in New York. And I think this is where we see where it's very, very problematic. Olay does go on to speak more about, and we're going to go to X5, Dwayne, but she does go on to speak more about Rikers. And she says, the myth of Rikers, saying that Rikers doesn't house convicted prisoners. It holds people who are awaiting trial. And Rikers continues to kill those people. She said, so much for innocent proven guilty. Let's take a look.
Okay. I want to address a myth. There's a popular misconception that Rikers is a terrible place for terrible people. Rikers is a terrible place. Full stop. Full stop. The people locked up in Rikers are not there because they're terrible people. They are just the people the state had the opportunity to put there. Anybody who gets arrested in New York City, that's where they send them if you don't have the money for bail. Anybody. It's not a place because these people are exceptionally awful. The only thing they have in common is poverty. That's the only thing they have in common. And there's been a lot of talk about the amount of people that have died by suicide in Rikers, and I want to say this. If people take their lives because of the conditions you put them through, because of the horror you subject them to, because of what their state has done to them, that is not a suicide, that is losing your life at the hands of the state. A civil society puts its money where its priorities are at. There's no reason that the NYPD and Rikers have billions and billions and billions more dollars than we get for homelessness, than we get for education, that we get for health, that we get for absolutely any resource. It's unacceptable for us to even have to have this conversation. It's unacceptable for a structure like this to stand for 90 years. And I want you to think about this. I asked you in the beginning how much unspeakable trauma you think lives behind those walls. How much unspeakable trauma you never hear. You never, ever, ever hear about. And think about this. We're gathered here today. We came all the way out here today, and they will not let us past this point. Why do you think that is? What is it that they don't want you to see? What is it that they don't want you to hear? Today we say no more. One person died last night. I don't want to hear about another one. I don't want to hear about another one. So, in the end, I want to say this to y'all. Shut it down.
Come on, Olay.
Come on, Olay. She was free. I said, Olay, you was in the house, girl. I was aiming. Listen.
Yeah.
We must act now. I know we say that all the time and people don't be acting, but Olay gonna act, okay? She's gonna be there, she's gonna pull up. What is it that Rikers does not want you to see? People are dying way too often, so what is it that they don't want you to see? Why, is it that money is being put so much into this place? Rikers didn't have nobody running it for a while. The inmates were running it during the pandemic, okay? Mm-hmm. The inmates were running it during the pandemic, having to save themselves, having to figure out how to maneuver during this time because correctional officers' leadership there was not pulling up. This did not make national news. This did not make national news at all. The leaders who were up for re-election or election came over there maybe once or twice to come check the people out, never came back again. Said, okay, we're going to do an investigation. We're going to move forward. We're trying to get them the help that they need. Never returned again. So much so that the Rikers inmates had to save themselves. And this tells us all that we need to know. As she said, somebody died the night before. People are dying literally all the time at Rikers and with no reasoning. And they just believe that it's just, it's just a thing that happens. They probably died because, if they were sick or whatever the case may be. Did they get sick from being in those inhumane conditions? How they were being treated? Were they raped? Were they beaten? The trauma that is behind those walls, that to me was deep. Earlier on in the morning show, we heard Georgia speaking about trauma. For us who go out and protest and how we got trauma and things like that. Those people are supposed to be considered rehabilitated with the trauma that they're experiencing, for the trauma that they went in with, the trauma that they experienced within that place, and to come out into the world limited in what they can do. And that's supposed to be considered rehabilitation.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think too, like where I do want to highlight some of that, like an experience that I had with one of the prisoners that I was able to like just know. This gentleman was arrested 2 weeks after his 18th birthday. He spent all but those 2 weeks and a few months of his life as a ward of the state.
Jesus.
Right, he was a technically a free American for 2 weeks. Commits a crime, it's all his fault. He's in prison for a decade and a half at least. He doesn't say I didn't do anything wrong, but for us to ignore what this really is, like it's a crime in itself, right? For us to ignore the conditions that society has built for us that lead to these things, to ignore it is a crime. To ignore how we're dealing with these things in Rikers Island and prisons, jails and prisons across America, private prisons. This is a crime. Like the idea that there's just the simple, I am gaining money, I'm gaining capital from the imprisonment and slave labor of individuals. We know what that is.
Yes.
We know what that is. And it's happening every day.
Yeah. There's so much that goes into it. Slave labor. Yeah.
And I was about to say the exact same thing. It's all money. The more bodies they have in, the more money that they get, and it sucks that it's like that, because Rikers is the prime example. They literally, in my thought process of how I feel that they sit down and they talk about it is, you know what? They did this on the slave ships, so maybe we start laying people one way and stacking them another way. We can start maximizing our benefits and start making more money and get more money out of these people. Oh, it's just meningitis. He'll be okay. Don't worry about him. That's more money we got to spend. We can save those $5 that we're going to give him for medicine and just go ahead and he'll be okay. He'll live. He'll be going to court maybe like a week or so.
And I'll tell you, too, all of these people at Rikers, the people running Rikers, they're going to run over to Eric Adams, Mr. Top Cop Mayor, and they're saying they are going to use these deaths to increase their budgets. Are they going to spend any of that money taking care of people?
Nope.
Talk about it. And I think I don't understand why there's a reverse effect when people start to say, hey, we must stop this, inhumane actions happening over there. There's no medical support to support these inmates. There's not enough food. There's not enough bed. There's not enough housing for them here. And what happens is they go to the leadership. The leadership says, you know what? We'll continue. We'll fund it. That's what we'll do. We'll fund it. We'll give it more money, help it grow. Yeah, that's what we'll do. And the funding is there, but we don't see the change. We don't see nothing, no benefits from that. I don't understand why that is. I just recently when we were talking about defunding the police, right? And that doesn't mean that we're saying that we don't need police. That does not mean that we're saying that police are all bad people. That's not what we're saying, right? But that's how people take it. But we've been saying defund the police. All of a sudden, these mofos getting blessed with more money, more ammunition, and we're seeing more black bodies, right? This is what I don't understand why this is a thing, but anyways, I digress. It's a lot of mess happening over there. I think that we should continue to use our voices and our platforms, and as you said, Bubba, like having black media out there to get the word out, but having these people who are actually true-hearted, genuine about the work, genuine and getting these people help, genuine in pushing for leadership to stop this, to acknowledge it, and it's funny because the number of people who, decided to get on those buses is amazing already. And to go out there and to stand in solidarity with a push for change at Rikers. And then the number of people who have the conversations in social media space is enough for it to get national media attention. But because it's just problematic to attack, especially leadership out there in New York, and tell them that they're holding... Rikers is not a running prison. The prisoners are running it. This is something they're not getting any. It's pay. It's slave labor. There's so many people dying, questionable deaths that are happening there. But they don't want that the connections, the national media does not want those stories to be told. And I thank God that we have these platforms that we can tell it ourselves. So shouts out to Olay Mama. Thank you so much for doing that. Shouts out to our producer, David, for going out there and joining the movement, joining the fight. I know this is going to be an ongoing thing as she's constantly covering the issues at Rikers. So we'll definitely continue to talk about this story as it develops. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to stay live today. Marcus, if you can stay with us for the after show, if you have time for the next 30 minutes. But we're going to have some talks about Ukraine, some of the racial issues that are happening amongst this war between Russia and Ukraine. That and more coming up right after this.
I'm on sabbatical. I'm out in Central America. I need a break from hysteria. Park like the one with the carousel. I get it lit in your area. I'm locked to the vision that couldn't declare. You couldn't pay me to care enough. I dare you to hate me supreme with the sound through the stereo. So turn it up loud when you hearing us. We live and it's good in your area. My mama proud, she tearing up and it's going down. Got your girl aroused by these massive stacks like 100 pounds. Running big laps till the sun is down like 100 miles.
All right, y'all, make sure y'all stay tuned, man. We are staying live this morning, so make sure that you stay tuned. We got more coming up.
If I hold you down, I'ma keep it there till we in the ground. Jet black when I paint the town, only blue sheets when they pay me now. Treat it setback like a step back. Wave, I got the game in a vice grip. Way up when the virus clear. All the homies on the flight list.
So over the weekend, I'm telling you what I did. I accidentally sprayed deodorant in my mouth.
Won't stop, I'm relentless.
Now when I talk, I have this weird accent.
Ray gun on safety. My girl so tasty. Tell her it's your world. She want the two-tone spaceship. Go smoke screen daily, so the stress don't face me. I want a grill for the mouthpiece, so bright that it light on my face. Your shawty just call me a fave, cause she like my character traits. I never stop for a break. I put a lock on the game. I put a stock in my name, but I give a f about the fame. I took a bite of the life and it tastes so exquisite. It feel like you do when you cooking like
y'all. Make sure y'all stay tuned,
man. It's romantic, my girl. Chill up for the kid. I'm not on no sense. Won't stop till the young easy dreams. When I take her from rags to riches. I heard that you claim that you know me, but you ain't the homie to f is your friendship. I need the loyalty, back up the royalty. I give a f if you notice me. Ain't nobody holding me. Big wave at your shoreline, so they know it's me. Babe boy from the cold seas. Nitro with a new pen, go at ISO, tell them don't reach. Ice cold with it, no fleece. I'ma need safety. Tell her I can't snake me. Ray gun off safety. My girl so tasty. Tell her it's your world.
Never blame someone else for the road you are on. Never blame someone else for the road you're on. That is your own ass fault.
Crazy.
Boondocks Dragon, good morning to you.
I'm going, crazy, wave, crazy, crazy, wave.
Take a real close look now. Soon you'll realize you don't know what's coming down.
Pablo, good morning to you. Yes, happy Fat Tuesday to y'all. Happy Fat Tuesday. If you didn't know, that's Mardi Gras. So happy Fat Tuesday to y'all, man. Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned.
So keep it up right now. So keep it up. So keep it up with me. I need to move.
Bluebird on my shoulder. Good morning.
Don't be a fool. You wanna hang with me.
William Moore, good morning. Snack Brother, what you talking about?
You wanna change. Join the paradise. So bring it on if you wanna hang with me. Alright.
I tripped in France. Wait, I think I did that one last week. Never mind. Elephants are afraid of bees. Good morning.
Take a real close look now. Baby, I'm versatile. Watch me when I come down. I make it worth a while. Take a real close look now. I'm gonna show you how. I'm about to get down. So keep it up now. So keep it up. So keep it up with me. I need to move. I need to feel the beat. Don't be a fool.
One sword, it's never terrible. Hey man, I got home from work yesterday to find my kids have been on eBay all day. If they still on that tomorrow, I'm gonna lower the price. All right, y'all. I think we are ready to come back. Yeah, no, maybe something. All right, y'all. Welcome back to the screen. My sister from another Mr. Rebecca Zora and our brother Marcus from Left Flank Vets.
What is the sound giving me over here? It's giving me Florida on a hot day with the, you know what I'm saying, the Chevy donks. It's a lot. It's a lot happening.
It's got to be this FAMU internet making everything sound like trunk rattling and everything on them big ass tires in Florida and everything.
Yes.
Flip flops and socks on and all of that.
Yes. You know, the black flip flops.
All the Haitians with their little shirts over their little stomach side.
You know, all the Haitians with the Zoe flag in the car, and you know how it is in Florida. For some odd reason, these people, and I thought that was so sexy as a child. See, that's my Florida side. They would literally pull up in Chevys or whatever and have it painted in, like, somebody would have like a Haitian flag painted on the car. So the theme of the car is like Haiti. Some other people will have like Rocco's Modern Life painted on the car, and that's the theme of it. Somebody had a Facebook Chevy, bro, and they had Monte Carlos, right? They got Monte Carlos sitting on God knows what, like inside yellow, outside yellow. And then they got the word yellow in black on the car. It's crazy. That's literally, it is crazy.
Pull up with Louis Vuitton printed cars. Like, oh, I didn't know Louis Vuitton made that.
Right, Gucci printed cars. But why was they so fine to me? The men that used to drive it. Now that's my Florida side.
See?
And I was dating a guy in high school. My first boyfriend, senior year. He literally had a Chevy that sat so high. In order for me to get in the car, and I'm tall. He had to literally like kind of scoop me up to get up in there. The first one got stolen. He went out and purchased another one. What did he do? You know, now that I think about it. How did he get a new one literally in 2 weeks and then put the rims on it again? I don't know.
I don't know. If you have to ask, what did he do? Right, Marcus?
Leave him alone.
I was a kid. I was a child. I didn't know.
If you had to ask what he did, then don't worry about it. Yeah, right. Don't worry about it, Rebecca.
Yeah, we don't gotta talk about it.
And you said Florida?
It's crazy. It's South Florida, you know, it's crazy. But and he Haitian. Look, and he Haitian. But there's so much going on in the world. I'm glad that we're able to key here. But there's a lot that's going on in the world. I first want to start with friend to the show, Terrell Starr, who was one of early on when we started Like It or Not back in the 2017s. He was one of the people that was a friend to the show who used to give us Russia specialties for stories, and he was our expert. And what was great about it is that he's a black man, which I absolutely love. He's somebody who lived out there, who understands it, and is currently living in Ukraine. And recently on CNN, he had the opportunity to actually have a first-hand account while on air with CNN explaining the situation. Let's take a look at that.
Terrell Jermaine Starr is a non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council's Erasa Center and senior reporter at The Root. Terrell, give us a sense of what you're seeing now.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. I'm not at The Root, by the way, but what I'm seeing right now are men walking, they're being handed guns right now. I'm outside of a recruitment center. I cannot take video, and I don't want to spook out these men with these automatic weapons, so I have the camera kind of tilted. But basically, you have men walking up in their cars, people who are not, people who are traditionally fighters coming in and taking up arms to fight for guerrilla warfare. You see a lot. You see people who are taking their roller baggage, trying to flee the city as fast as they can. There are also some damage to buildings inside of the city proper, about 15 minutes from where I live. In fact, a building was hit, and it was a residential building. So this war has completely unraveled his business. Students that he depended on to come to the United, that come from the United States, that come from the United Kingdom, are no longer coming because of this. So he sent his family to Poland right now, saying that you will go to Poland, be safe. I'm going to stay here and fight for my country. But Andre right here, he speaks English. He's one of the many people who are coming to pick up arms.
He's getting a weapon to fight the Russians. How far is he willing to go? What does he think will happen?
What do you think will happen to you, Andre, if you and others go to the streets and fight the Russians? What are you expecting to see?
Well, I expect to see a battle. I expect to see a gun battle, and I expect to see that we're going to send them a message that they are not welcome here. Let's put it this way.
And so, right about a 10 to 15-minute walk from our building, a residential area was hit, and that building could have very easily have been us. And it really speaks to how much danger that everyone in Kiev, including myself, who's reporting on this, the situation is in danger, in fact.
And again, shout out to Terrell, who is not at the root, who is no longer at the root, as he made, clear on CNN. But he is somebody who, has a relationship with mostly, like everybody that he runs into. He has these relationships with these different people, and this, this teacher, this a language teacher who he befriended actually is taking up arms, while he was over there with him in the car as he went to go pick up a weapon somewhere to prepare for battle. And as this interview continues, you hear Terrell ask him, when were you able to have that conversation with your wife and your child if you don't come back? And he said, I wasn't able to have that conversation with them, but they understand, they know that I'm going to go fight for my country. And if you hear a lot of account of the people that live there, the Ukrainians that are there, that's a lot of what all of them are saying is that I'm going to fight for my country. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not a trained soldier. I'm not trained in military, but I'm going to take arms and I'm going to go fight. And Terrell being there, being on the scene, actually giving you the story for what it is, it's very chilling. His whole accounts of what's been going on. Yeah. His residential area being struck. It's definitely a lot to take in.
Yeah, and I don't know. This is a very difficult, situation in like all war, right? Is it's difficult to like just saying this is good, bad, and obviously the invasion's wrong. This is horrible. Like innocent civilians are getting killed, and like I was saying, I was on earlier with Brother Mac and Al and Captain Barnes, and I don't know if the conversation ever goes to where do we go from here. I think like it's just, I don't know. It's hard living in this reality where it almost feels like we're in the Coliseum and we're all watching a battle unfold on our phones. And that really too, like my organization, Left Flank, we don't think joining the U.S. military was good. We think that was a mistake that we made in our lives. And it's largely with the operations that we got involved, that we were told to do. And this is where too of like, I hope Russian soldiers that, go home. I hope any and all soldiers that aren't just defending their home, just go home, lay down your arms and go home. Because this doesn't end well. And none of this serves working class people, I just hope that like there's a serious piece that is being considered. Because my question is like really like, at this point we know Putin isn't going to stop. I don't know what the point of NATO is. If they're not going to help, right, then why not just step back? And that's I don't understand that.
Baba,
it's a lot. It's really a lot. But, watching everything, because like Marcus said, you just really don't know how everything is going to unfold and play out. I know we've avoided so many situations with Russia before, but it's one of those things of how much is the U.S. going to get involved? And are they going to start sending our troops on over there to do everything and try to help with this battle? I do know that the people of Ukraine, they have a resiliency about themselves where they are fighting back and they're holding them back. But how much more can they take and how much more can they do? You know, it's just really a lot. It's really disheartening to see everything going on and how everything is going on. And I'm just hoping that, you know, there's a hacker group called Anonymous. I've heard of Anonymous for years now, and I'm hearing that they're starting to do their own cyber attacks on Russia. So now I'm just hoping that the people of Russia start fighting back against their own government in their own country and expressing their disdain for what Putin is starting doing, because I already know that some of them are not feeling it. So I just hope that it goes out more. Sometimes we have strength in numbers where the people can assist in these types of things. So I just hope that does happen. I just hate how everything is transpiring. I really do.
Yeah, I think it's a mess, right?
Oh my gosh, man.
We're not trying to I think it's a mess for the people, period. I don't think any of the leadership is considering the people. War is not good. And I know there's been jokes that have been made and little kikis, and I honestly, have been looking online. I'm like, it's a little too early. It's not the time. There are people nothing about war is funny. And seeing it from this point of view, back in the day, we didn't know what it looked like when our people were the ones with the blood on their hands in these different countries like Afghanistan, things like that. We didn't know what that looked like. Now I'm looking at this. We have social media. We can see the firsthand accounts. And to think that there was a point in time that we were like that. We were literally pulling up on people's land, killing them for absolutely what? Nothing. Nothing. And so when I see that, I think of us. I think of Americans. I think of we're looking in a mirror when I see that, and that's my opinion. But honestly, I don't think any of the leadership is thinking about the people. Those not being able to go. But of course, as people who are very proud to be who they are, these people have been free for out of Russia's, leadership for about 30 years. So, them having this freedom for such a short amount of time, and then literally having the same folks who, come up on them to try to take that away from them. Of course, they're going to fight for their, they're going to fight for their nation. And here's the thing. With that being said, I'm glad we were able to put that, conversation there. In the same sense, with everything that we know, for some odd reason, when it comes to being black in the issue, it's a problem. Most recently online, if we know over the weekend, Africans in Ukraine was actually trending. And a lot of people, had their opinions on as to why it was trending. But when you clicked on the tag, you would see one of the most riveting tweets that I seen was one from Nze, and who's an African in Kyiv. He said, in the train stations in Kyiv, children first, women second, white men third, then the remaining is occupied by Africans. This means that we have waited for many hours for trains here and couldn't enter because of this being them being black. Majority of Africans are still waiting to go to, and I hope I'm saying this right, Lviv. And so now he takes a picture and he's showing how the Africans that were at the back of the line and, what that looked like. They were at the back of the line from the train. And some people were saying that wasn't true. Now, many other African students who were there or African families started to come onto social media, post up other videos of the account. Then he posted up a video where he said, we had to start shouting and pushing African women to the train. So they had no other option than to allow them, since they said women and children first. So they utilized the wording. They were like, well, you said women and children first. So we're going to at least get these women on, these black women on, with the other women who are going on so that they can get to where they're going. Another account that I seen was a woman who said that, when they got to where one of the areas that they were supposed to get to finally, they were treated and they like trash. They weren't giving any food or anything. When they finally got to, I believe they said Warsaw, Poland, which was the destination for them, they said they were treated much better when they finally got there. But they spent nights at the train stations. They spent, without food. I seen a video of a 2-month-old baby in the freezing cold outside. It almost looked like the Haitians at the border of Texas. It almost was given that to me. And they were being treated were being treated terribly. So many people were trying to take to social media to assist, find assistance, find help. Even some of celebrity rappers were trying to figure out how they can get them assistance. And some people were saying, why are we talking about race in this time? Why are we talking about, when we're not focusing on the war? I said, well, how can we not focus on what's happening? Black people, even in the midst of a war, have to deal with being black and being pushed back to the end of everything. Of a war. Yes, and not being assisted. Marcus?
Well, I'm going to take it in, kind of a different lane because I agree, I co-signed, seconded, repeat everything that you just said. Like when it comes to racism, it needs to be addressed right now. I do not care what the situation is. But I think how this looks and this is the thing too, is like when we get into this social media, like just insurgents that we have in this world where everything minute by minute we're getting more and more and more. Really, Ukraine government, and this is why people don't want to. We can't talk about this. Why? Because of the sentiments. Oh, are you a Putin apologist? Are you trying to help Putin because they're trying to talk about black people? No, that's absolutely absurd. In each sense, right? Because even if this is a mistake, you need to accurately address the mistake for people to know that you aren't racist, right? You need to say, oh man, we didn't know this. You were doing what? Guards over, you were doing what? But you don't see any of that. You sweep it under the rug. And this is where too of that's the thing is Putin is using the line that there are Nazis and there are significant Nazis in Ukraine making the decisions. Okay, he is using that as a narrative, as a pre-context to invade. Mm-hmm. Now, when you've got situations like this, when you've got situations where the Ukrainian National Guard is sharing videos of people loading, or say like dipping bullets in pork lard to kill Muslims, and calling them orcs, there is a problem, and not addressing that problem is actually feeding into Putin's narrative that there is a substantial Nazi problem in Ukraine that they need to invade to stop it. It's not like you can't invade countries and start killing innocent people, And so that's where the really the problematic thing on the higher level is when whether it's Ukraine, the EU, NATO, the United States, people online, anytime you try and brush all this stuff up under the rug instead of addressing it and confronting it in this specific position, it's actually giving Putin a little bit more legitimacy. And I don't know what to say to that. This is just where we're at now.
Yeah, I get it. Bubba?
Agreed. It's with this whole situation. I know that there have been different accounts and everything and stuff going on, but I'm just you can say all you want to about a lot of this. It's the videos and the footage, it doesn't lie. It speaks for itself. I've seen video where there are white Ukrainians that are pushing the black people off the train or not letting them board or do these things. So it's hard to believe somebody tell me or say that I heard XYZ once we see the footage ourselves and it looks like they're not getting the same amount of respect or being treated the same as everybody else is. So it's a lot, and I'm sure there are different stories to everything, but just from what I see myself looking at it, they're being treated inhumanely, and it needs to change. When we have the damn war, man, that's crazy to me. Yeah.
And we should be able to talk about both.
Yeah.
There's no reason that We're watching this with our own eyes. We're hearing the accounts, and why would we ignore it just to focus on just the war? These Africans, these Black people who are in Ukraine, who are probably just in the border or trying to move, whatever, in that area in the midst of this war, they're people who are going through the war as well. And they're also being pushed to the back of the line, no matter what time they got at the train station. If you are Black, you just don't get assistance, and it shouldn't be like that. We have to acknowledge what is happening there. Ukrainian people should be safe. The Black people who were born in Ukraine should be safe. The students who were going there for education should be safe. People, period, who are seeking asylum, anything out of Ukraine should be safe, should be treated, should not be mistreated because of the color of their skin. It is not us saying that the war isn't going on if we're acknowledging the racism that's going on. Because we have to understand that at this point, the Black people are dealing with more than one war, okay? The war of racism and the war that's happening right there at the border. So I need for people to understand it's not that we're saying that, oh my goodness, we're trying to divert from focusing on the war. This is what Putin would want. No, we're adding it exactly to what's going on, and we're saying that people matter. Since y'all don't want to talk about it, since it's a hard thing for people to talk about it, especially racist, we're saying that all people matter in this particular, since y'all want to say all lives matter, in this particular situation, that's what we're trying to push. And we have to acknowledge that the Black folks there, they matter too. So when we have these conversations, this is something that we will continue to talk about as this is ongoing. A lot of people are discussing alleged abuse that's also happening. I'm following different accounts, people are looking for places to seek asylum in the midst of trying to travel. So there's a lot going on there. There's a lot of, social media conversations. But one thing about it over here, what we will do is have the conversation. All right. Yeah. So we're towards the end of the show now. And I think that we have so much to talk about that we can go into tomorrow as well. But I am so happy that you were able to join the conversation today, Marcus. First of all, where are you from? What? Tell me a little bit about you. Where are you from? Where they found you at?
I'm kind of a mutt. But my parents were Jamaican. They came over into the 80s, but we had come all up and down. So I was born in Texas, but I grew up mostly in Columbus, Ohio. I did live a little bit in Puerto Rico, when I was growing up. So that's Columbus is my home, but I've lived all over Maine and everything like that. I joined the military. I have a few years after high school when I was just kind of spinning my tires. And I was in the Marine Corps. I've been all over the world and with the Marines, and that perspective is what really started, shifting actually building my political ideology. But so of me and a few other veterans worked on Vets for Bernie for 2016, 2020, early leading up to. But with what happened with the campaigns, we had kind of all spiraled out into our own projects, myself and a few others, we started Left Flank Vets just to be just kind of a voice out there that is in opposition of the pro-war, pro-troops, narrative. And the thing is, and like you just said, we need to be able to hold conflicting ideas, in our heads at once, that it's not the fault of these individual troops. It's the systems at play, and so, I think I'm not even sure really how, I think I just saw the email or that's what David had messaged when I was streaming and hey, Marcus, do you want to come on Ben Dixon show? I was like, yes, yes, sir.
All right. Does David know you personally?
No, and actually, I gotta shout out to some of y'all mods like Jam2, Samuel the Dragon on Twitch. These are people who are just good, genuine people that I think did a lot of work behind the scenes to make this connection. Okay. So yeah, I think that might have been it. So thank y'all, thank y'all, and David too was this dude works his ass off, and just him reaching out, yeah.
That white man works behind. He sure do.
I can't stand you, Rebecca. Right, we have some amazing viewers, and they DM us and they talk a lot. It was like, oh yeah, you guys need to check this person out, and check this person out. So shout out to our viewers, man. We really appreciate y'all.
They do. Thank you guys for connecting, us with other Black professionals, other professionals, period. I absolutely love to bring people onto our show who are, fighting the same fight with us, pushing, the same messages or educating us on new messages, and I absolutely love that. So, Marcus, before we leave, where can they find you?
Twitch.tv/leftflankvets, Bird app, on Twitter, just search for Left Flank Vets. You'll find us. We haven't touched our Instagram or Facebook in months because, I'm just not so, I don't have fun on those platforms, but those two places I will be streaming at around noon. Right. And that's the thing is Rebecca, I feel you on not being, on time doesn't have to be so serious. Okay. But it'll be,
and there's somebody who's talking from the military. Okay. So hello.
Exactly. Because they always say, hurry up and wait, hurry up. You got to be on time so you can wait 3 hours. I might as well not show up on time then.
Exactly.
So
Marcus, I ain't got no problem with her being late, right? It's just she gotta catch these jokes, man. And then she be trying to throw me under the bus, right? She be late and she try to throw me under the bus I've been waiting in the joint. Well, you just gonna have to wait.
Fair, because sometimes you're not boxing, you're just shadow boxing. This is supposed to be fun. Right.
Whatever. It's Taco Tuesday. What we eating today? Did you mute me? I can't hear nobody.
Oh, we're waiting for you to close it out.
Right.
Look. See? Okay, anyways, we're at the end of the show. I love you guys so much. It is Taco Tuesday. Go get you a taco. Go be great. If you guys want to pay for my taco today, it's hashtag Becca's Voice. I love you guys so much. Mean it. Mwah. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Can't stand that girl, y'all. Thank y'all again so much for joining us this morning, man. We had a jam-packed morning show this morning. It was the big morning show. I said a whole lot of words at one time at the playground. Marcus, thank you so much again for joining us this morning. It's always a pleasure. Dwayne, thank you for holding it down. And of course, your affirmation. You already did that. Let me find a good affirmation for today. Yes. Here we go. In everything I do, I turn to self-compassion, which makes me strong. In everything I do, I turn to self-compassion, which makes me strong. Love y'all, mean it. Y'all go great. They want me quiet, I amplify. And I'm gonna lay off the coffee. Love y'all, mean it. We'll see y'all in the morning. You bow to the queen. You lose all your senses and reason. I'll give you something to believe. OMW.